Welcome back. This time we're talking about Timeless, Season 1, Episode 7, Stranded. Now before I begin the review, let me apologize for the tardiness of this video. I could have sworn when I saw the preview at the end of the Watergate tape that they said the next episode was 2 weeks away. So I didn't even know it had aired until I found it in my DVR queue over the holiday weekend. Now as I said, this episode is called Stranded, and that is exactly what happens to our heroes. The action begins with Lucy, Wyatt, and Rufus already back in September 1754 during the French and Indian War, having been captured by the French who think they're English spies. Fortunately, they're able to escape, but they find Flynn's men rigging explosives to the lifeboat. And they realize that this particular sojourn to the past was specifically designed to strand them in the past without a way home, which happens when Flynn's men are able to damage the lifeboat and escape to the present. The result is an adventure in which our heroes have to evade the French, escape some Native Americans, and create a capacitor at a blacksmith shop, all the while dealing with the trust issues that resulted from the revelations from last episode. Namely that Lucy hadn't told the others about her conversations with Flynn, which included her future notebook, as well as the fact that Rufus was spying on them on behalf of Rittenhouse. So a lot of this episode was about them dealing with these trust issues, and most of it had been dealt with by the end, especially after Rufus risked his life when he told the Native American chiefess who was about to kill the other two that she would have to kill him as well, and begged for their release. Now I mentioned in my review of the Alamo episode, and that was the one that basically kind of gelled our characters so they could be broken apart in the subsequent episode, the Watergate tape. And I had mentioned that I had kind of initially wavered on whether I had thought that this gelling had been truly earned at that point. And ultimately, I fell on the side that it had. Now, I have to say, where that episode didn't completely succeed, this one did. It felt much more earned when we see our heroes at the end sort of reminiscing over their issues and really becoming a team again. And that really comes from the fact that they had to overcome some major issues, and the result definitely felt genuine. Now, as far as progressing the long-term storylines, there wasn't a lot in this episode, although there are a few things I do want to mention. The first is when Connor Mason is talking to our Rittenhouse agent, who is upset that the lifeboat hasn't arrived on schedule. And he bemoans the fact that they've lost the lifeboat and lost Lucy Preston. It was a comment that did not escape my notice, and I was quite pleased to see that it did not escape Connor's notice either, questioning how and why Lucy was picked for this mission. Obviously, we as an audience know at this point that her biological father is somehow involved in this, but at this point no one else does. And speaking of Connor, we do get to see him later reminiscing about Rufus with Gia, and it was a really nice moment because we really haven't gotten much up to this point to really sort of develop his character beyond being the mysterious billionaire. And the other thing that comes up in this episode is near the end, and that's when Agent Christopher orders surveillance on Connor Mason, because she's become convinced that he's hiding secrets. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out because he's essentially already under surveillance by Rittenhouse. And I have to imagine they're not going to be pleased with Homeland Security looking closer at their asset. Now, on a personal level, we finally got to see some development into the relationship between Rufus and Gia. Not to mention that we got to finally find out what happened in that date after the pilot episode. And of course, this culminates in the kiss at the end. I was really worried that he was going to try to push her away because he's fearing Rittenhouse, and he may still do that, but it was nice to at least see them have some moments in this episode. I do also want to mention the final conversation when they're all sitting around having a drink and discussing predetermination versus free will, both when it comes to Lucy's journal as well as Lucy and Wyatt's respective efforts to save their loved ones. As she apologizes at one point in this episode, she once told Wyatt that his wife was supposed to die. And as she explains in this final scene, that was a part of her desire to save history, something that was sort of ingrained in her. But everything that's happened to her since then has sort of changed her perspective, and now she's willing to basically reach out and grab what she wants, whether in her case it's her sister or in Wyatt's case it's his wife. Now, since I was late, I didn't want to drag this video out too long, so if you've seen this episode, let me know what you thought about it. As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some of my other TV and movie reviews, and until next time, if you're going to go back to the French and Indian War, you better learn French.